triggered your interest towards nutrition and especially women's health?
Well, I started looking at premenstrual syndrome. It used to be called premenstrual tension. It gives a lot of symptoms like anxiety, irritability, and comes about 7 to 10 days before the period. And yet women were often put on antidepressants for the whole month. And that's what got my interest into the nutritional side. This was over 30 years ago. And now I specialise in any hormonal issues for women. So yes, PMS, but also polycystic ovary syndrome, fibroids, endometriosis, women going through the menopause, and of course fertility, and that's looking at it for both men and women.
Okay, thank you. What is your opinion on the reasons and causes of the high rates of infertility that is experienced nowadays?
I think there are a number of reasons. I think there are lifestyle issues, particularly for women. They can be under a lot of stress, and that makes it difficult to get pregnant. And obviously there will be other issues such as diet. Maybe people are eating more processed food, there may be additives, chemicals within the food itself. And also we have to think of fertility as being multifactorial. There are so many factors: lifestyle, alcohol, smoking, as well as the dietary side. And for women, because they may have career choices, they may not have met the right person, they can be waiting longer to get pregnant, and that can make it more difficult. So we have to think of looking at all of these factors for both the man and the woman in order to help them get pregnant either naturally, or improve the success rate of IVF treatment, or improve the chances of staying pregnant if the woman has had a number of miscarriages.
What can couples do to maximise their chances of conceiving and staying pregnant?
Yes, there are a lot of things they can do, and obviously I would always think of diet because of the nutritional aspect. It is looking at the lifestyle ones as well. And what we're aiming to do for men, it is a bit easier because men produce sperm all their life. So we can improve not only the quantity of sperm but also the quality. As women, we are born with our set supply of eggs, and of course they are older when we're 45 than when we were 20, and we cannot change the quantity. We have this ovarian reserve that's set, so there isn't any leeway in changing the quantity. But for some women, they may not realise that actually we can change the quality. It takes a woman 3 months to mature the egg that's going to be released at ovulation. So we have this 3-month window of opportunity of preconception care to help improve the quality of those eggs, no matter what age she is, as long as she's ovulating.
Okay, that's great news. It gives people hope, you know, what they can do.
Yeah.
Are there any specific foods that you recommend for men and women?
Yes, I do, definitely, and obviously it is all about eating really healthily and fresh fruit and vegetables, and I know in Cyprus you've got access to local produce and that, which is wonderful. For men, where the research is really showing there can be a difference is increasing the antioxidants, and that's what we get from all the different colours in the fruit and vegetables. So nowadays we talk about eating a rainbow and making sure all those different colours are coming into the diet. And for the woman as well, it's all about eating that healthy Mediterranean diet with the oily fish, the fruit and vegetables, the olive oil, the nuts and seeds, and taking out the processed foods that may have chemicals, additives, artificial sweeteners in there, but also looking at other factors like alcohol, smoking, and they may need emotional support like stress. But in terms of the nutritional side, there is so much potential, because what we're aiming to do is help the woman produce healthy eggs, and for the man to produce healthy sperm, so that fertilisation is more likely and the ability to stay pregnant is higher, and that's what we're aiming for.
I know that harmful exposures during the first trimester have the greatest risk of causing major birth defects.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to take supplements during pregnancy, or is it best to avoid taking anything during the first 3 months when many embryo developmental changes do take place during this time?
Well, I would normally recommend that the woman, she may use fertility supplements to help her get pregnant, as well as all the dietary changes, and I would then switch it to an antenatal supplement at the 12th week of pregnancy. She would stay on the fertility ones. I still put in omega-3 and also vitamin C. I think the most important thing is that she does avoid any chemical exposure or any other harmful toxins that may be coming in, because as you said, that 12 weeks is that period of highest development. So that's why there's a high risk then of problems, or a higher risk of miscarriage. So women do have to be careful in that first 12 weeks until basically the placenta has taken over, and then the risk of miscarriage will drop. So it is being careful in those first 12 weeks, especially with diet and other factors.
Okay, that's very interesting. Hormone imbalance is quite a common occurrence among women of all ages, from teenage girls right the way up to women going through the menopause. Which foods or whole food supplements and herbs can they take, or would you recommend that women take to help them keep their hormones balanced?
Yes, and there are a lot of different hormone imbalances, like polycystic ovary syndrome, where there can be an excess of male hormones. So, but then we're talking about fibroids or endometriosis, where that's driven by estrogen. So hormone imbalances can manifest in different ways. An interesting group of foods that women should include are phytoestrogens. Now, women often think these have an estrogenic activity because that's what the name implies, but they don't. They actually have a balancing effect on hormones. So all of the legumes, and we're thinking of chickpeas, lentils, yes, include the soya as well, but not all the emphasis has to go on that. And things like flax seeds, which are also called linseeds, are really useful, and they definitely have a balancing effect on hormones, whether that's excess male hormones, like for polycystic ovary syndrome, or excess estrogen. And what it will help us as we go through the menopause as well, research shows that it helps with the hot flushes and the night sweats, but they also reduce our risk of breast cancer. So we're looking at not only helping ourselves through different hormone imbalances, but in our minds as women, we also want to work on prevention. So what we do with our diet and the way we eat, and keeping all those fresh fruit and vegetables in and the oily fish, will help us no matter what age we are. And as women now, we can live 30 to 50 years past the menopause. So we want to live that with good health, good mental health, good energy. So what we do when we're younger, and it doesn't matter what age a woman starts this, is going to be really beneficial at whatever age and stage she is in her life.
I've heard that eating too much soy can have the opposite effect if it's not of good quality, or if
Yes.
it can be genetically modified, or it can be cancer causing, or it can cause thyroid problems.
Yes. So what we're thinking about is
Soy.
to eat it as it's traditionally eaten around the world. If it's organic, it's not going to be genetically modified, but in my opinion it must be in its whole state. Fermented is even better, but it's when we start messing around with the foods and making soya to taste like chicken or beef, or we isolate it, so you're talking about soya isolates, and if it's raw, it's going to have an effect on thyroid function. So when we eat it, as these cultures have eaten it for hundreds of years, and interestingly, when they look at men in these countries where they eat these foods, they do not have the same prostate cancer death rate. So it has a balancing effect on hormones, both for men and women, but it is eating it as it's traditionally eaten. And for me, it's not putting all the emphasis on soya. It should be lentils, things like hummus, all of those things to go in the diet, and just have the variety. It's the variety that's the key.
Well said. I do believe in variety.
Yeah.
There is a lot of talk on alternatives to sugar.
Yes.
How safe are these, and is there a natural alternative that you recommend?
Yes, I have written a book called Natural Alternatives to Sugar. I spent the last year researching it. It was quite an exercise. For me, sugar is one of the key foods to avoid for all of us, especially for women with hormonal issues and for fertility as well. It is a refined food. It has no nutritional value. It's just empty calories. So I do have issues around added sugar within the food, and I hope people will start to avoid that out of their diet. And then we have to think about then what do we put in instead. And for me, I'm always thinking about how unrefined is a natural alternative to sugar. I want something that's had the least refining and then has some nutritional benefit. And for me, I would always go organic where possible, so I would try and use things like organic barley malt syrup or organic rice syrup, sometimes some organic maple syrup as well, but it needs to be the real
the real deal.
syrup and not the glucose version. And also there's lots of ways of using different fruits and vegetables with their own sweetness in cakes and other foods that we eat. So we can use the sweetness that nature gives us within those foods to put into cakes and things like that. So we do have lots of choices, and you know, people will get used to a different taste as well, because oftentimes we're used to this strong sweet taste that we get from sugar, but our taste buds will change as well. But it's one of those foods that over the years I've talked about, and only in the last few years have people realised that it does have, you know, quite negative effects, not only in terms of type 2 diabetes, but also cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and also Alzheimer's. So lots of what we would class as our degenerative illnesses can be actually worsened or even triggered by this amount of sugar that's going in the diet.
We're lucky in Cyprus in the sense we've got carob syrup.
Wonderful.
Grape syrup.
Yes.
It's concentrated grapes, and
Yes.
it's all natural. Date syrup.
Yeah, date syrup's a good one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can use those, brilliant. And if you can get organic, obviously even better. But yes, those would be
Your
brilliant.
opinion on honey? Raw unprocessed honey?
Yes, if you can get that. Obviously it is a simple sugar, so it's going to be digested quite quickly. So I would use that in moderation compared to the others that you'd mentioned.
All right.
Yeah.